Welcome to the Cottagers Podcast, a production by Cottage Pastures.
On this podcast, we discuss rural living, homesteading, and small-scale farming.
You'll hear conversations and interviews about the realities of modern life and returning to the land.
I'm Matthew.
And I'm Carissa.
We're the founders of Cottage Pastures and your hosts on the Cottagers Podcast. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Cottagers Podcast. Wow, it's been a minute. We kind of had a bit of a hiatus there for a while. Farm season.
Yeah, spring started and then it just kept going. We never really got a break.
No real breaks recently. And that's just a part of, I think, the real rhythm of homesteading and farming today. And it's a reality that because everything is so seasonal and there's really no way, you can't slow it down. It's not like you're building something that can be built in the springtime in the same way in the summertime, the autumn time. Spring has demands and they have a timeline. If you don't plant by a certain time, you don't get a harvest at a certain time or at all. So that has kind of been consuming our life over the last 2 or 3 months. And
four or five, maybe.
Yeah, 4 or 5. Really, as soon as March starts is really when it starts to get kind of chaotic.
Yeah, we start garden planting and then we have broiler chicks arrive and then we can't really come up for air until about right now, like mid-July. We finish harvesting garlic and then we get a little bit of a breather before we have to jump back in for the fall.
Which is like right now.
Yeah.
So, I think that one of the things I wanted to talk about, I think it's kind of timely, and it's one of the things that people don't always talk about. We know it's there. I think everybody does know it's there, but it doesn't come up. And it's just the honest reality that this is a difficult lifestyle. It's very challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I think people talk about it privately with other families that are doing it, but in a public situation where you're encouraging other people to do it, I don't know that how hard it is really always comes across.
Yeah, I don't think it does. There's so much romantic views of homesteading and farming, and especially, like in our situation, we were like so many other people. We were, living in the city or in the suburbs, and for years we wanted to move out to the countryside and had all these great dreams about what it would look like and how it would be. And then you get out here and there is that romantic ideal still. It's new, you're working through things, you're not really, in the very beginning, you're okay carrying 5-gallon buckets, hundreds of yards away multiple times a day to give animals feed and water. And then as soon as you put the water in the bowl, the pig decides to swim in it instead. That's fine. That's fine. In the beginning, 3 to 4 years in, it's a little annoying and it's a little, the novelty has certainly worn off. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think everybody has a different consideration for what is most difficult and what's most challenging. But what have you thought? Like over let's say the last year or so, like what's been most difficult about running the farm or the homestead?
Honestly, what's been the most difficult is feeling so behind. Like I feel after so many years of doing this that I should understand a rhythm better and that I should have developed more skills and feel more versed in it all. And I feel like it's still a challenge every year. I'm certain that where I am right now is way further than where we began, but it's really hard when you're in the moment to see how far you've come. And so living it out every day, I think it's just hard feeling like I'm not where I want to be. I haven't figured it out yet. And I think that's probably just how life goes. I don't think that is abnormal, but yeah, that's what's hard for me.
Well, and one of the things too is when you start all this, it's fun to do the things that are really new. Like it's really fun to get into the gardens or get animals and start moving them around. But even as then you start to realize that everything has a nuanced approach to it, right? Like if you just take livestock, it's not just, watching these videos and seeing beautiful rotational grazing and, people who seemingly have it down and animals that apparently always behave correctly. Goats behave differently than sheep and sheep behave differently than cattle. And they all behave differently when they're separated as individuals versus when they're working together as a herd or as a flock. Broiler chickens are a completely different temperament than layer chickens, and layer chickens don't always lay eggs when you want them to,
Or where you want them
or where
to.
you want them to. And then you get these grand visions of what a fully productive garden should look like that would provide for you or your family for the whole year.
And balancing out the timelines of the animals that you're raising with the garden and making sure there's enough time for both. It seems that has been a big challenge for us.
Yeah, there's few things that are more frustrating than walking out to an animal that you've been working with for months or years and finding that it's now sick or has passed, or walking up to a garden that you have tended from the moment you planted seeds and then realizing like a certain insect has completely demolished the entire crop. It's just gone.
Or it's rained the last 3 days and now weeds have completely taken over.
Right.
You can't even find whatever you planted.
That's one. So we have a neighbor, and he'll drive by, and he used to farm the land that we currently farm, which is where we live in Homestead. And he'll always remind me how fertile the ground is. And I sit there and I think it is. You're right. Everything grows here. Like everything I put in the ground, it pretty much always grows. People who come and visit, they always look at the soil and they're like, "Wow, that is beautiful soil." I'm like, "Yes, it is. It's phenomenal. Everything grows." Everything grows.
Yeah.
Everything. A lot more things grow than what I planted. Thistles, pigweed, broadleaf, grass, everything grows here. And it's such a blessing to have such fertile soil. And we keep making it more fertile, running animals over it. But it's also an incredible challenge to understand how do you get to grow exactly what you want to grow and then also defend that growth from everything that wants to eat that, including us. So yeah, it's been an exhausting year for sure, but really encouraged by it too. Like I think this is one of the first years where we're starting to really have a pretty solid abundance out in the gardens and also of things being brought into the home to use.
But not really in the way that we expected.
Yeah, that's a great, talk about that.
It's not like when we lived in the suburbs and we had a garden, we grew a lot of the produce that we like typically eat. We grew tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and watermelon and broccoli. And it was easy to like transfer the produce I'd get at the grocery to the produce we're growing in the gardens. And for whatever reason, I mean, maintaining the animals. And then, like, I've always said that when you have animals and you have plants and you have to pick between one, animals just feel a little bit more urgent because it impacts you more if they die. I mean, like, if you mess up and you leave the animals alone and they die, like, it feels a lot worse than if you mess up and the garden fails, you know? So what we've actually found is that we have produced a lot more with herbs and some tea for our family. And we're filling up, like it grows so fast. We're able to preserve it really easy and quick.
Yep.
And we're really like quickly switching over to being able to provide for our herb and tea needs for our family.
Yeah. And if you follow us online and social media, you will have noticed that we are starting effectively one of the few or only American grown herb businesses around too. And that's something that we're extremely excited about. It started with the garlic and then it has transformed now into all of these other herbs. And so this was kind of an interesting year because I think it's the first year where we started something and it's already moving to abundance. So it's like the pathway forward for that and the scalability of it is very obvious to us, I think, at this point, and we're excited by it. And it's really neat to walk by like gardens and there's like just the overwhelming scent of chamomile all over the place, or peppermint or spearmint, or in just about maybe 3 more weeks, our calendula is going to start to bloom and it's going to succession bloom for the rest of the year until the frost kills it in late October. So that's been incredibly exciting. And I think when we started the farm, the original idea was to say, hey, it's actually just like a supersized homestead, like a subsistence-based farm. Then you kind of, get humbled really quickly that that's actually really difficult to accomplish and balance exactly correctly. You can't, you have a certain amount of acreage or a certain amount of land. And in order to maintain that land, you need a certain amount of animals or a certain amount of machinery. And then in order to keep it going, you have to have like a perfect balance of animals that move in a rotation at certain times of the year. So
Hmm.
like sometimes people will say, okay, well, I have 5 acres or 10 acres and I could run X amount of cows on that land or X amount of sheep. Well, some that presumes that it's always nutritious forage that's always growing, but it grows very differently in July than it does in September than it does in March. So you have to figure out that rhythm while also trying to manage the planting and the harvest cycle of everything else. So we learned through a lot of loss and mortality of animals and gardens. Like there was a 2 or 3 rows. We plant a lot of garlic for the farm business, and there was like 2 or 3 rows that I just tilled over this year. I was like, it got too overgrown. It was an experimental area, and we just had to say it was just a loss. Like it couldn't keep up with the weeds on it because it was just everything was growing too quickly. So learn some lessons for next year about how to avoid that. But
And varieties. We've learned lessons about what varieties work better for us. When
yeah,
with everything that we have going on, we're not like hyper focused on garlic, and there's just certain varieties that are a little more temperamental. They
hmm
require more vigilance and watchfulness to know when they're ready for
and they
harvest.
harvest at different times too.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was something we were. So to back up for our farm business, garlic has always been really important. We've always grown one variety. This last year, through a
Not
unique
fully
situation, yeah, it
intentionally.
wasn't like we set out to do this, but we planted something like 25 or 26
Yeah.
varieties.
The plan was to expand to like 3 to 4 varieties and
Right. And then just
went a
something
little
happened and we
bigger.
ended up in a situation
Yeah.
where we were able to get a whole bunch and we thought, well, that's really cool. Let's just try it out. Until you get to harvest and you're like, well, I have to have a way of separating confidently 26 different varieties. Some of them, we were given like a bulb. So there's like
Right.
one bulb of
We
them
had like 4 to 6
and it
that
was
we
like,
planted.
yeah, and you'd like grow it out over the next few years and expand it. But
Right.
that was just a mess. And so I think in, this year we're going to go back to what we should have done from the beginning is say, look, we have like 2 or 3 varieties and that's
Right.
it. When we sell those three, you can pick from those three to buy individually or mix and match them. So that was just one of those lessons about sometimes more variety is not a good idea. And anybody who's ever grown tomatoes probably knows this because
Yeah.
when people grow tomatoes, you get kind of drawn into these seed catalogs that have all these colors you've never seen, sizes,
The seed
shapes.
catalogs really get us.
We
We
do.
we're like this year we're gonna hone in, we're only doing the basics, and then we start looking through the catalogs and you just keep adding. You're
Like
like,
what's
that
what's one
sounds so
pack of them? What's
interesting.
one pack? What's one pack of this variety that grows in subtropical
Yeah.
part of the world that no one outside of this has grown successfully ever? But we'll try it.
Yeah.
We'll give it a shot. We'll be the ones. So that's kind of funny. I'm thinking of how many varieties of tomatoes are out there right now. It's more than one.
Yeah, well,
It's more than
I
three.
went to pick up a couple starts from a neighbor and
That's true.
she had some very random varieties and I was like, I guess we'll just try these out. So it got we have a lot of mix and match out there, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
We'll
What
see.
we
It'll
do
be
with
good.
it.
No, I think overall, you just have to really be prepared for the reality that one day the romance of it will wear off.
Well, there's one more thing I want to say about one of the other hard aspects that I feel like we've hit up on this year, which I think is really common. I think I've heard a lot of other people that try homesteading go through the same thing. But this year specifically, I feel like you're saying, the romance, the novelty of it has kind of died down. It's like you get out to the land and your why for why you're doing this is so big and clear because now you're finally starting. You're like, we're finally here. This is what we've been wanting. We know why we've wanted this. And then you get 4 or 5 years in and it's really hard and you can romanticize your old suburban or city life and you're like, is this really what we want? Like, why'd we give up all that? Like, I just could go 5 minutes to the grocery store and I had whatever I wanted to eat. And like, you really have to question and remember, like, why are we doing this? And does it really matter? Like, is it actually making a difference for our family?
But I think it's very similar to how many people will experience marriage too.
Yeah.
You know, like in the very beginning, there's just so much excitement and novelty and newness and butterflies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then eventually you realize like you're flawed people and you bring your flaws to your relationship. And part of the goal in life and is striving for holiness and learning to be charitable and you know you get to a point where that newness just wears off and you kind of have to make a daily recommitment. Like I
Yeah.
this is not always the easiest, it's not always the most ideal, but I commit and have to recommit to do this over and over and over and choose to love you even when it's not the easiest.
And
And same for you, for me.
even when you can't see all the fruits in the moment, because you can have faith that the fruit is growing. Maybe you're in the season where like you've been pruned back and it's about the roots growing deeper and you can't see what is being produced
Mhm.
yet. But like I think it's very relatable to both
I
marriage
do.
and feeling the weight of life on top of this dream that you've had, this thing that you've longed for, and then you add life onto it and life is heavy no matter what
Right.
circumstances you're in.
Yeah.
So it it can be easy, I think, to hit a hard point and feel the weight and be like, maybe we messed up. Maybe we shouldn't have done this.
So how do you feel like at this point, you know, we're in what is it, July, mid-July of 2026. How do you feel like what is when you think like why are we doing this? What do you think? Or what would you tell people?
Well, I mean, it's easy to say the food because that's like practically what we're doing. That's tangibly, we're growing food and we know like there's a parasite outbreak and we know like we could go out to the garden and whatever we get out there is probably going to be fine.
Yeah, we're not going to have that issue here.
Yeah. So like there's worldly things that we're like we don't really have to worry about these things. If there's an egg shortage, we're like doesn't affect us. It's not affecting our feed costs and like we're fine with these things with the food. But I think that I think that what we're doing is really laying a foundation for us, but you and I have known that it's very clear that what we're doing is really for our children because we aren't going to get to experience the fullness of what like we're creating right now. Because we look back and we can look at our own childhoods and the way that we were brought up and we can see where foundations might not have been prepared for what we've had to face.
Mhm.
And being able to look ahead and say like what you and I are going to do right now, what we're going to sacrifice, what we're going to work really hard for is ultimately going to benefit our children and our grandchildren.
Yeah, and I suspect some people think that that's almost not a sufficient reason at times, and I would just articulate that it really is. You know, I think it's a generational idea that you want to leave a better world for your children than you experience yourself. And I look around at the life that our kids have here, and I don't, you know, we certainly have opportunity to be better and more holy parents for sure, but these children are just thriving in a way that baffles me. You know, I saw our children built a ladder out of scrap wood the other day and nails that they found around on the farm, and they put it together, and it's completely functional.
Yeah.
You know, my son, there was a post on the social media platform X the other day that, you know, a couple weeks back that I posted. You know, he wanted to come out. There was a major rainfall coming, so we had to harvest garlic ahead of that. Right, we could not let that touch the garlic right before harvest. And it was super late at night, and it got to a point where I was like thinking I might have to stay up and see the sunrise. Like I might be doing this all through the night, and I might see sunrise. And I told my son, like, "Hey, you need to go to bed, bud. Like, you got to go." And he just, you know, not in a disrespectful way, but he effectively refused and said, "Look, I want to be out here with you. I want to do the work. I want to help you." And I don't know if that means that he just he's, you know, developing a good work ethic, or that means that he really cherishes time with me, or something in between. But either way, you know, I didn't feel compelled in any way to override him and tell him no, he had to, because this boy wanted to be with his dad and wanted to work. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that is just, you know, what a consolation and a beautiful gift to me, what a great feeling. But also look at this foundation that he's going to have, because he'll remember that.
Hmm.
And then one day he'll be able to gently encourage his own children, if God so wills that he has them, to also develop the same type of discipline or charity for him and his peers. And I thought, I, how would I do this elsewhere?
Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't know how. Where else they would get to see, us as a family try to produce something and be productive as a household, where we actually, we grow things and we make things. We don't just consume things. And he probably sensed this reality that this is going to be a destruction to this thing that we're trying to produce for our family and for customers. And I want to help dad. What a incredible thing.
Hmm.
I don't know how to describe it any other way. There are children, they like to go out and spend time with the animals. One of my daughters likes to go outside and seemingly is like singing and prancing across the farm looking for butterflies. And I'm like, I just like, what a beautiful life where they're not sheltered, but they have the opportunity to actually be children in a world that continually seems to not want children to be children anymore.
But at the same time, we're not raising them to become children. We're
Hmm.
raising them to become capable adults so that
Right, exactly.
we feel confident. Now, our children, we don't even have a 10-year-old yet, and we feel confident that by 16, 17, 18, our children are going to be prepared to enter into adulthood. They're not going to get there and be like, adulting is hard. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't think.
know how to do this. I
And,
have to feed myself.
and realistically, yeah, like for you and me, I presume for a lot of 30, 40-year old folks today, or even those older than that, you go this, what is now kind of in modern times considered a traditional route, which is not traditional really at all, which is that you go to elementary school, then high school, then you are effectively on a pathway to go to a university or college. And a lot of people, they go into college and it's really just this giant bubble at the time when they should be really like developing social skills and positive professional relationships and learning how to actually be productive in the world. And instead what it ends up doing is creating this false environment that when the time they graduate, they're very literate or very like
It's
um
a very stark contrast from the real world.
yeah, so they get into what is quote the real world, where basically you have to move out, get an apartment, um, start paying bills, start working to make a living, and the contrast is brutal.
Yeah.
And they don't, confidence gets zapped. You may have been an A student in university, but in the real world, that's not always rewarded, and a lot of people don't care.
And we also say this from experience. Like, this is
Yeah.
the life that we've lived, and we can see the difference from what we've come through and what our children are walking through already.
Well, and I presume some of what we consider difficulty or challenge is actually us just learning, and we're experiencing
Yeah.
obstacles that we have to think through and figure out how to overcome it. Like we had there was one time where we had a pig. We had just put pigs out on pasture, and it was I think it was right after a drought.
There was a drought, and then it rained,
It
and then
rained,
we put them out.
and then we put them out on the pasture, and I think it was like it was some kind of poisoning that two of them got from eating something on the ground that after a drought and then followed by a rain becomes poisonous to them. Incredible lesson. I don't even know how I would think to know to ask like to avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to figure out, we were able to actually bring one of them back and successfully live the rest of her natural life with us here until we took her to processing. And it's like one of those, like, it's a mental challenge to have to think through that, and it's a almost a traumatic experience. But now we know, and our children will know, and so we can avoid that mistake, and we can teach other people about that too. And we also know how to, if we ever get in that situation, we know how to remedy it and help.
It was also a sweet experience to feel an animal know that you saved their life. She had a reverence towards you afterwards,
She did.
which really like caught us off guard. Sometimes you don't know how to think about what animals process and how they see the world, but she clearly had affection towards you after you saved her life.
Yeah, like anytime I'd go over to feed him, she was like coming up and trying to like rub on my leg or something. Or
She even almost tried to hug you
I
once.
don't
I
think
mean,
they know how to hug, but
it seemed very much like she wanted a hug.
she like jumped up. I've
For a
never seen
pig, I've never seen a pig
I
do
didn't
such
know
a
a
thing.
pig could do that.
Me either.
Like jumped up on my like, so it was just like standing on its hind legs.
Like a dog will jump up
Yeah.
and wrap their arms around you. Like, are you hugging me? I don't know what's happening.
That
But
was comical.
yeah,
That was, I think that was last year when that happened. That was funny. But yeah, I mean, so like difficulties. This is difficult. This is really hard. It's
Yeah.
really challenging. And I think that you have to have a willingness to commit to say, this is worth it. And you need to be very clear about why it's worth it. Because there are days where it's just easier to think, hey, it'd be nice if I didn't grow a garden, honestly. Like I should have just gone to the grocery store, or I should just go to the store and get a steak instead of, going through your freezer and realizing steaks are a limited, part of the animal, and you have to learn how to eat all the animal, not just, the one part that you might want to eat all the time.
That one, truthfully, I don't want to go back on. I don't like steak from the store.
Oh, I love steak. I think it's sad when we don't have it anymore.
Me too, but there is a difference.
We don't have any right now.
We don't have any beef. I did want to touch on the romanticizing part though, because sometimes I think it's about what, like, the perspective, the way we see what is romantic. And I think that this is actually another lesson that we've had this year. One example that's super clear to me, on the 4th of July this year, I love the 4th of July. I love to go somewhere and watch fireworks, have a big party, do the red, white, and blue. And this was the 250th anniversary of our country. It was a big year. I really wanted to get out and go to some fun party. But it happened to be garlic harvest, and we just couldn't get through the garlic quick enough. So we spent our 4th of July harvesting garlic, and Matthew actually gave me a very slap in the face, so to speak.
Well, hold on, like metaphorically.
Metaphorically, he didn't physically hit me. No, but conviction. He gave me a conviction because I was feeling a little bit disappointed with how our 4th of July was playing out. And then he came out at one point and was like, what is wrong with you? Like, this is the best 4th of July I think I've ever had. Because, do you want to share why?
Well, the whole day. I mean, it was a fun day. I've never had a 4th of July that was fun before. So, okay, so we had to do garlic harvest. So they're harvesting garlic. It's in the middle of the day. It's super hot. It was a Saturday. It's probably like 90 degrees. It's a very difficult harvest.
It was the hottest week of summer that we've had so far. It
was terrible. And there's so much poundage of garlic that we're pulling out. So we had to do all of that. But then I also had to get calendula in the ground. So it was literally like the sun is going down.
Well, before we got that far in the day, we were like, it's really hot. Let's take a break and go get lunch.
We did. So we did. We drove to a town nearby, about 40-ish minutes away. And we did get lunch.
Our favorite pizza place.
Yep.
Which apparently nobody goes to get food at a restaurant on the 4th of July.
We did.
Maybe it was just this year. I don't know. But we did. The restaurant was empty, and we got the best pizzas we've ever had there.
It was so good.
And then we took the kids to get ice cream.
And then we got ice cream.
And fireworks.
Fun. And then we went to a fireworks store, which I'd never been to before. Well, no, that's not true. I've been to a fireworks store before.
Not in our town.
But I've never bought fireworks like what we bought. That was uncomfortable. So then the kids wanted fireworks. I was like, I've never done it. And apparently we were allowed to do it. So I'm going to go get these fireworks and we're going to go.
We got the big ones for the first time.
So then we come home and we go back to garlic harvest and we're harvesting. And then we planted some calendula and the sun's going down and we're out there in the fields and there's, we're out in the countryside. So people like to shoot off big fireworks.
And especially, again, the 250, all of the neighbors have fireworks this year.
So we're looking off in every direction all around the farm. There's fireworks going off. We're harvesting.
Yeah.
We're planting. And then it's completely dark. We go home and my son and I set up all these different fireworks. And his face is lit up. He's amazed. They're using sparklers. We're lighting these fireworks. They're just exploding all over the place. It's just it was like this incredible, very patriotic. This is a beautiful way of, celebrating. We're farming, we're homesteading. and there's fireworks going off overhead.
It really was. There was a point before the sun had set that Matthew came out and was like, "This is the best 4th of July I've ever had." And it like stopped me in my tracks, and I was just like, "Wait a second. I've been upset because we had to harvest garlic today and it was such a hot day and I just want to be in a pool with watermelon and hot dog. But I don't get to do that today." But then I thought about it and I was like, we spent the whole day with our kids. We got to go get pizza and ice cream and we came home. The kids like ran back to the tree line because the neighbors behind us set off a great fireworks show. Like I think they brought people from out of town. It just kept going. And the kids stood back there jumping up and down, watching every firework while I harvested garlic and he was harvesting garlic. I think I was taking it in to be tied up and he was pulling it out of the ground. And then again, like we got to the final point, there was supposed to be rain coming, there was lightning going off around us and thunder, but the fireworks were still going off. So I'm like literally picking up garlic, putting it in the tractor, watching fireworks go off, and I'm like, this really is like,
I thought it was awesome. It was a great
day.
Was
it was all about perspective. And someone else said something about that to you recently, and I think that that's really one of those things. It can be so easy to focus on the hard and to miss all the good that's happening too.
Yeah.
And like I think a human experience that many people talk about, how you can look back and see the good times were happening, but it's really hard when you're in the moment.
Right.
And so sometimes I think you just have to practice gratefulness and really focus on what is good that's happening, because the hard is always going to be there.
That's true. That's true. That's a good note to end on. So it's been difficult. I think we're learning to appreciate the challenge. And in that, in some ways, it's actually becoming more romantic. And it's probably a beautiful spiritual lesson too.
Yeah.
We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for joining us on the Cottagers Podcast. For more information on today's episode, check out the show notes or visit us at cottagepastures.com. We look forward to you joining us on the next episode.